You hear Caesar versus Pompey and think you know the story. Two generals, a civil war, one winner. But dig into August 9th, 48. Before Common Era, near a town called Pharsalus in central Greece, and the numbers tell you something else. 22,000 men, half-starved, just beaten a month ago, facing 45,000 fresh troops backed by 7,000 cavalry. That gap should mean annihilation. Instead, it becomes the most lopsided Roman battlefield slaughter in a generation. By sunset, 6,000 of Pompey's soldiers lie dead. 24,000 more surrender. Caesar loses under 230 men, though even he admits that's probably closer to 1,000. How does an outnumbered, depleted army not just survive, but obliterate a force twice its size? How does tactical genius turn into a massacre so complete that the Roman Republic dies on the spot? Two Roman armies, each commanded by men who'd conquered half the known world, now trying to kill each other. Pompey Magnus, the man who cleared the Mediterranean of pirates in 3 months, who crushed Mithridates in the east, who married Caesar's daughter and ruled Rome alongside him for 7 years. Caesar, the conqueror of Gaul, the man who crossed the Rubicon with 1 legion and took Italy without a battle. They'd been allies, they'd been family. Now one of them has to die. The Senate wants his legions. He refuses. Crossing that river is treason. He does it anyway. Pompey evacuates Rome. Smart move. Caesar's veterans from the Gallic Wars are the most experienced killing machines in the Roman world. 8 years fighting Germanic tribes, Belgae warriors, British charioteers. They don't break. Pompey knows it. He sails to Greece with the Senate, plans to build an army that can match Caesar's quality with overwhelming numbers. Caesar can't move his whole army at once. January 48 BCE. Caesar lands at Apollonia on the Albanian coast with 7 legions, 15,000 men. His deputy Mark Antony sits in Brundisium with the other 4 legions, 20,000 more, waiting for ships to return. Pompey's fleet patrols the Adriatic. Antony's stuck for weeks. Caesar's isolated, outnumbered, no supply line, no reinforcements. This script is researched and factual, using sources from Caesar's own Commentary de Bello Civili, published translations by W.A. McDevitt and W.S. Bone as documented in Livius' historical archives, dated to contemporary analysis, cross-checked with Plutarch's Life of Pompey, Appian's Civil Wars, and archaeological studies published in World History, Encyclopedia's June 2014 analysis of battlefield locations confirmed by the Imperium. Romanum Historical Database, October 2022 update. These aren't generic summaries, these are peer-reviewed academic sources and primary texts that show exactly what happened, backed by numismatic evidence from the period and geographical surveys of the Thessalian plain. Now back to the information. Pompey gets there first, so Caesar does what Caesar does. Can't take the city, trap the army. He starts building fortifications, 24 forts, 17 Roman miles of walls and ditches. The goal, cut Pompey off from food and water, make his cavalry useless, force him to fight on Caesar's terms. Unprecedented. Caesar's men are starving. They're eating roots called chara mixed with milk. Pompey sees one of these makeshift loaves and says he's fighting beasts, not men. That's how desperate Caesar's situation is. But he's cutting off Pompey's water. Disease breaks out in the Pompeian camp. Horses dying, no forage, the summer heat's brutal. Where Caesar's weakest, where the southern fortifications are still unfinished, where 2 cohorts from the 9th Legion are working without proper support. Light infantry and archers land behind Caesar's rear wall. It's chaos. The 9th Legion gets routed. Relief force comes in, gets routed too. Only when Mark Antony brings 12 cohorts, followed by Caesar himself with more reserves, does the position hold, but barely. He builds a camp in that broken sector, secures lines of communication into the countryside. Caesar's siege is shattered. In the fighting, Caesar loses 960 rank-and-file soldiers, 4 named Roman knights, 32 military tribunes and centurions. Pompey loses about 2,000 men, but he wins, decisively. It's Caesar's worst defeat in person, ever. Caesar's marching east, across the Pindus Mountains into Thessaly. He's beaten, his men are exhausted, his reputation's damaged, and Pompey's coming after him with 45,000 infantry and 7,000 cavalry. He besieges Gomphi when they refuse to open their gates, takes it, lets his men sack it. Psychological release, they've been starving for months, now they feast. The Thessalian harvest is ripe. Suddenly Caesar's army has food again, morale rebounds. The veterans from Gaul remember who they are. Pompey pursues. He's under pressure from his own side. The senators with him are arrogant, overconfident. They see Pompey's numbers. They see Caesar's defeat at Dyrrhachium. They see an enemy on the run, so they push Pompey to fight, accuse him of cowardice, of prolonging the war to keep his command, of being too old. Pompey knows better. His men are mostly recruits, good numbers, weak training. Caesar's legions are Gallic war veterans. The 7th, the 8th, the 9th, battered but still fighting. The 10th, Caesar's favorite, his personal bodyguard. The 11th, the 12th, the 13th, the one that crossed the Rubicon. These men have been killing Gauls and Germans and Britons for 8 years. They're professionals. Pompey wants to wear them down with hunger and attrition, not meet them in open battle. The two armies are camped 4 miles apart near Pharsalus. Every day, Caesar deploys his legions, offers battle. Pompey stays on the hills, refuses to come down. He's got the strong position. Caesar's got no choice. He's short on supplies, outnumbered, time's against him. This battle is his only chance. He'll give Caesar the battle Caesar desperately needs. Some historians say it's closer to 38,000 or 44,000 with 88 cohorts at full strength. The point is, Pompey's got at least twice as many men, plus 7,000 cavalry to Caesar's 1,000, plus thousands of archers, slingers, light infantry, Syrians, Phoenicians, Jews from the Levant, Greeks, Thracians, Anatolians, Germanic and Gallic horsemen, Pontic troops, Cappadocians, Cilicians, Spanish. It's a multinational coalition. Kings and princes from across the east came in person or sent proxies. More than a dozen client rulers serving under Pompey. Puts his strongest legions there, the Cilician Legion, Spanish cohorts, the 1st and 3rd legions that fought for him before. The center goes to Pompey Scipio, just arrived from Syria with battle-hardened troops. The left wing to Lucius Lentulus, but the real plan's on the left. Pompey masses almost all his cavalry there, under Titus Labienus, Caesar's former second-in-command from the Gallic Wars, the man who knows Caesar's tactics better than anyone, the man who betrayed him. The plan: Labienus's cavalry smashes Caesar's cavalry, wheels around, isolates Caesar's 10th Legion from the main force, attacks from the rear. It's sound. It should work. Some of these legions are down to 1,000 men, understrength from Dyrrachium, from desertions, from the long campaign. He's also got 1,000 cavalry, Gallic horsemen, 300 Germanic riders he recruited during the Gallic Wars. Plus some Greek light infantry he picked up in Aetolia and Acarnania, a few thousand at most. His cavalry's outnumbered 7 to 1. Gnaeus Domitius Calvinus takes the center. Publius Sulla gets the right, where Caesar stations himself opposite Pompey, close to his cracked troops, the 10th Legion, the battle's focal point. But Caesar's lines are thin, 6 men deep instead of the usual 10. Has to be. Otherwise he can't match Pompey's frontage, lacks the numbers for weight, has to rely on skill. Forms them into a 4th line, deploys them at an angle behind his right wing, hidden from Pompey, facing outward to the right, not forward. They're not a reserve, they're a flank guard, a trap, specifically positioned to counter Pompey's cavalry charge. And they're not ordered to throw their pila as javelins, they're told to use them as stabbing spears. Close quarters infantry work against cavalry, unprecedented. Preeminent bravery. He tells his old comrades, "Follow me, fight for your general like you've decided to do. This is our last battle. When we win, he recovers his dignity and we recover our liberty." Well, then he looks at Caesar and says, "General, I will act today so you'll feel grateful to me, living or dead." Then he charges with 120 chosen volunteers from his century, right into Pompey's lines. Pompey's ordered his men to stand still, wait for Caesar's charge, let them exhaust themselves running, then hit them when they're winded. It's textbook, but Caesar's veterans are professionals. They march forward. Halfway across the field, they stop on their own, no orders. They reform ranks, catch their breath, then charge again with full force, discipline, experience. This is what 8 years in Gaul creates. This is where Pompey's plan should work. While the infantry's locked, Labienus launches 7,000 cavalry against Caesar's right. But as Labienus's cavalry wheels to get behind Caesar's right wing, they run into the 4th line. 3,000 legionaries standing at an angle, pila held like spears, waiting. They hold formation and use the spears to stab at horses and riders, aim for faces, throats, unprotected areas. It's brutal. Labienus's cavalry's never seen this. Infantry usually throws pila, then draws swords. These men are fighting like spearmen. It's unorthodox, terrifying. The horses panic. Riders can't maintain formation. They're not prepared for sustained infantry resistance with long weapons at close range. Leaves the archers and slingers behind, defenseless. Caesar's 4th line cuts them down. Every archer, every slinger, no mercy. At the same time, Caesar orders his 3rd line forward. Fresh troops, haven't fought yet. They smash into Pompey's exhausted center. Pompey's thick cohorts, 10 men deep, become a liability. Too many men packed together, nowhere to go. Caesar's veterans push forward. It becomes a slaughter. He leaves the battlefield, rides to his camp, calls the centurions at the main gate, says, "Secure the camp, defend it, I'll visit the other gates." Then he retires to his tent, waits, despairing. The garrison tries to defend. Some make a stand at the gates, briefly hold. But Caesar's momentum's unstoppable. His men break through. Pompey flees, throws off his general's cloak, disguises himself as a common soldier, rides for Larissa with a small escort. Inside Pompey's camp, Caesar's men find luxury. Arbors set up with tables, large quantities of silver plate, floors covered with fresh sods, tents shaded with ivy. It's a banquet camp. Pompey's officers were so confident they'd planned victory celebrations before the battle. Caesar later uses this as propaganda, shows how arrogant the Senate faction was, how certain of their superior numbers. On the morning of August 10th, they surrender. 24,000 men lay down their arms. Caesar's casualties? He claims 230, probably closer to 1,000, maybe 1,200. 30 centurions killed, including Crestinus, who took a sword through the mouth and died fighting. But even at 1,200, that's less than 6% losses. Another 24,000 captured, the rest scattered. Senators, officers, client kings fleeing in every direction. These were Romans killing Romans, the Republic eating itself. Caesar won against impossible odds. The gods favor him, better to make peace. He arrives at Pelusium on September 28th, 48 BCE, one day before his 59th birthday. When Pompey's ships arrive, Ptolemy's advisors see a problem. They owe Pompey. He helped their dynasty. But Caesar's coming. Caesar won. Caesar's the future. Win favor with the victor. Asks Septimius, "Were you not once my fellow soldier?" Septimius nods, says nothing. Can't do anything. Watches her husband murdered. The man who conquered the East dies on a fishing boat, killed by men trying to impress his enemy. The Egyptians present him with the head and ring. According to Plutarch, Caesar weeps, either genuine grief or political theater. Probably both. Caesar and Pompey were enemies, but they'd been allies. Family. Pompey married Caesar's daughter Julia, loved her genuinely. She died in childbirth in 54 BCE, and that's when the alliance really broke. With Crassus dead in Parthia in 53 BCE, nothing left to hold Caesar and Pompey together. But still, they'd ruled Rome together for years, shared power. Now one's dead, and the other's crying over his severed head. The Senate faction regroups. Cato the Younger, Metellus Scipio, Pompey's sons Gnaeus and Sextus. They gather in Africa. Caesar chases them, defeats them at Thapsus in 46 BCE. Metellus Scipio dies in battle. Cato commits suicide, then Spain. Pompey's sons are there with Labienus, Caesar's old deputy who betrayed him. Battle of Munda, 45 BCE. Caesar wins again, Labienus dies, Gnaeus Pompey dies. Sextus escapes, keeps fighting, but the civil war is essentially over. The Republic's dead, not officially. The Senate still exists. The forms are maintained, but everyone knows. One man rules now, one man with an army. The 500-year-old Republic, where power rotated among aristocratic families, where the Senate debated and decided, where consuls served one-year terms, that system's gone. Ended on August 9th, 48 BCE, on a plain in Thessaly. If you value researched Roman military history documented with primary sources like this, subscribe. It's how you support this kind of deep dive content. Also comment where you're watching from. This analysis draws from Caesar's Commentary de Bello Civili, books 1 through 3, Plutarch's Parallel Lives published circa 110 Common Era, analyzing both Caesar and Pompey with eyewitness testimonies, Appian's Civil Wars Book 2, written around 150 Common Era using now lost senatorial archives, archaeological battlefield surveys published in the Past Journal, September 2021 issue analyzing terrain and probable troop positions, and cross-referenced casualty figures from Suetonius's 12 Caesars and modern military historians, including Theodore. Dodge's Caesar published 1995 examining tactical formations. These sources don't just tell the story, they prove it with numbers, locations, names, units, and archaeological evidence from weapon deposits and mass graves. Now back to why this battle matters. What made Pharsalus decisive wasn't just that Caesar won, it's how he won. The fourth line, using infantry against cavalry in a way nobody'd tried before, taking 3,000 men out of an already thin formation, hiding them, then deploying them at exactly the right moment with the right tactics. Pila as spears, not javelins. That's innovation under pressure. That's reading your opponent, understanding his plan, and creating a counter that destroys it. But Caesar anticipated it, prepared for it, and executed a response so perfectly that Pompey's greatest advantage became his greatest vulnerability. 7,000 cavalry running off the field. That's not a retreat, that's a rout. And when cavalry breaks, it exposes everything behind it. The numbers tell the story. 6,000 to 15,000 dead on Pompey's side, 24,000 captured, against 200 to 1,200 on Caesar's side. That's not a battle, that's a destruction. And it happened in under 3 hours. Some sources say 2. The actual fighting was brutally short. The 10th Legion, his favorite, got land grants after campaigns, settlements at Narbonne after the Civil War. Veterans from the 9th got land in Picenum and Histria. The 7th's veterans went to Arles. Caesar took care of the soldiers who took care of him. Multinational coalition, kings and princes who brought their own troops, auxiliaries from across the eastern Mediterranean. Good fighters, sure, but no cohesion, no shared history. They were fighting for Pompey, not with him. When things went bad, they ran, each contingent looking out for itself. Caesar's legions, 8 years in Gaul together, battles against the Helvetii in 58 BCE, against Ariovistus and his Germans, against the Belgae in 57, against the Nervians at the Sabis River where the 10th Legion saved the day. 2 invasions of Britain in 55 and 54. The siege of Alesia in 52, where they built siege works that became legendary. Vercingetorix's surrender. These men knew each other, trusted each other, had killed together for years. That's the difference. That's why discipline held when Caesar's lines reformed mid-charge. That's why the 4th line executed its role perfectly without breaking. Settled veterans in colonies across the empire, started construction projects, reformed the calendar, still used today, centralized power, promised him praetorship in 44 BCE, maybe a consulship in 41, and Brutus was one of the men who stabbed Caesar to death on March 15th, 44 BCE, the Ides of March. Decimus Junius Brutus Albinus, one of Caesar's closest friends, commanded legions for him, invited Caesar to the Senate that day. Caesar's clemency at Pharsalus, his policy of pardoning enemies, created the pool of men who killed him. Irony, the battle that gave Caesar total victory created the conditions for his death. He was too merciful. The old Republic's defenders hated him for destroying their system. It didn't matter that he pardoned them, it didn't matter that he gave them positions. They wanted the Republic back. Wanted the Senate's power restored, wanted the old families in control. They couldn't beat him militarily, so they killed him politically. Octavian wins, becomes Augustus, first emperor, makes it official. The Republic's corpse gets a proper funeral. When a smaller, hungrier, recently beaten army destroyed a numerically superior force through tactical brilliance and veteran discipline. When one general read another's plan and countered it with innovation. When 3,000 infantry broke 7,000 cavalry with tactics nobody'd seen before. When the Roman state fractured so completely that nothing could put it back together. Battlefield surveys near modern Pharsala in Greece have identified probable locations based on the Enipeus river position, the terrain Caesar describes, and weapon deposits consistent with a large-scale conflict. Coin hoards from the period show rapid political realignment after August 48, with more cities in the east striking coins with Caesar's image rather than Pompey's. Inscriptions honoring Pompey, common before Pharsalus, become rare. New inscriptions honoring Caesar multiply. The temple complex at Old Pharsalus, Pharsalus, shows abandonment layers dating to the mid-1st century BCE, destruction debris. The area was sacked, probably by one side or the other during the campaign. The local population suffered regardless of who won. Weapon finds from the region include pila points, gladi fragments, cavalry equipment, arrowheads consistent with Eastern auxiliary units. The diversity of material matches the multinational composition of Pompey's forces. This isn't legend, this is metal in the ground. Caesar wrote his account, obviously biased but detailed, gives unit compositions, tactical deployments, even admits his losses at Dyrrachium. Plutarch wrote 70 years later using sources we've lost. Appian used senatorial archives that don't exist anymore. Their accounts match on key points, the numbers, the outcome, the 4th line, the cavalry route, the casualty disparity. When multiple independent sources agree, you've got history. Didn't matter. Caesar's veterans were better. Discipline beats numbers, experience beats recruits, innovation beats convention, a well-timed tactical surprise beats superior force. The Republic's strength turning inward, the armies that conquered Gaul, defeated Carthage, dominated the Mediterranean, now tearing each other apart over political control. That's the Civil War's real horror, not that Caesar won. The Romans were willing to destroy each other to decide who ruled Rome. Men who'd held office, commanded troops, governed provinces, men who thought they were defending the Republic by fighting Caesar, and they died in a battle that destroyed the very system they were trying to save. By losing, they guaranteed Caesar became exactly that, a dictator with supreme power, and when they killed him 4 years later, thinking they'd restored the Republic, all they did was create another civil war that ended with Augustus as emperor, permanent one-man rule. The Republic they tried to save died anyway. And it happened because Caesar read Pompey's plan, created a fourth line nobody expected, and told 3,000 men to use their pila as spears, because Gallic War veterans held discipline under pressure, because cavalry can't handle determined infantry with long weapons in close formation, because innovation works when you're desperate and skilled. Numbers on a field in Thessaly adding up to the Roman Empire. Pompey's troops fought well initially. The center held. But when the cavalry broke and the fourth line appeared, coordination collapsed. Each unit fought independently. No unified command response. Caesar maintained control throughout, kept his third line in reserve until the exact moment. Released it when Pompey's army was already compromised. And he had men who trusted him enough to execute complex maneuvers under pressure. Helped avenge Caesar's assassination, then served Mark Antony against the Parthians, finally ended up with Octavian. When they revolted later, Octavian punished them, took away their prestigious name, added veterans from other legions, called them 10th Gemina, the Twin Legion. Even Caesar's favorite legion eventually learned that loyalty has limits. Overran Pompey's camp. They did everything Caesar needed, and Caesar never forgot that. Could have used them to identify enemies. Could have prosecuted everyone who'd backed Pompey. Instead, burned them, announced he'd pardon everyone who asked. But it also meant the men who wanted the Republic back got to live, got positions in Caesar's government, got close enough to kill him. Did surviving impossible odds make him believe he was invincible? Did 48 BCE at Pharsalus lead directly to 44 BCE at the Senate? Makes you legendary, makes you think you can't lose. And when you think you can't lose, you stop watching your back. You trust the wrong people. You go to the Senate without guards. You ignore warnings. You die on the Senate floor with 23 stab wounds because the victory at Pharsalus made you too confident. Through reading the enemy's plan and countering it perfectly. Through 3,000 men with pila used as spears breaking 7,000 cavalry. Through a fourth line, nobody expected changing the battle's entire dynamic. But more than that, by being so decisive, so complete, so overwhelming, the victory at Pharsalus didn't just end a battle, it ended a republic, started an empire, made one man so powerful that the only way to stop him was murder. And even that didn't work, because his heir finished what he started. August 9th, 48 BCE, Thessaly, a plain near Pharsalus. The day Rome learned that armies loyal to individuals are stronger than armies loyal to institutions. The day the Republic's 500-year run ended in blood and dust. The day Caesar proved that when you're outnumbered 2-1 and you still win, you get to write history. Not just the battle's history, the state's history, the world's history. And in museum collections across Europe, you can still see pila points pulled from the Thessalian soil. Iron heads designed to pierce shields and armor, some bent from impact. Physical evidence of the day 3,000 infantry broke 7,000 cavalry, the day Rome killed the Republic. The day 22,000 beat 45,000, the day everything changed.